There is something interesting about modern video games. The bigger they get, the more complicated the story seems to become. Multiple timeline, dozens of characters, political conspiracies, plot twists stacked upon plot twist. And while all these keep the stories amazing, sometimes they also feel exhausting, right?
Bleh.
Because every once in a while, we all really want a game that is something simple. A clear goal, a fun world, and abilities that make you feel powerful. When the game released back in 2014, it did not try to deliver a massive, complicated narrative. It did not try to be the deepest story ever told in gaming. Instead, it tried to focus on something entirely different. It focused on giving players one of the most satisfying superpower playgrounds ever created. And honestly, that decision might be the reason this game still feels so good to play, even today in 2026. The story of Infamous Second Son is actually very straightforward. You play as Delson Rowe, a rebellious graffiti artist living in a small town. He's not a soldier, he's not some chosen hero destined to save the world. He's just a guy who tends to get into trouble. But everything changes after the accident involving a prison transport carrying people with supernatural abilities. During this chaos, Delson suddenly discovered that he has powers of his own. In the world of Infamous, people like him are called conduits, humans who developed extraordinary abilities. These conduits are not being celebrated, you can say. Conduits have been feared, and people really hated them, and they are being hunted always. A government organization known as Department of Unified Protection, or throughout the game it is called DUP, has made their own mission to capture and control them. The leader of this organization is named Augustine.
Bleh.
This very evil looking lady is a conduit herself, surprisingly, but still she's somehow hunting other conduits. So yeah, this lady or this evil being with incredibly powerful concrete abilities is a bad guy of the story pretty much. From that point forward, the story becomes simple and clear. Delson travels to Seattle to stop Augustine and protect the people he cares about. That's basically the entire premise. I'm not even kidding. No complex political dramas, no tangled web of characters, just a clear motivation driving the story forward. And surprisingly, that simplicity works well. Extremely well, I would say. You'd have to share your own experience and comments, but if you ask me, I said it did deliver a fantastic job, even if you're trying the game right now. Because the real star of Infamous Second Son isn't the story, it's the powers that Delson has, the main playable character. Delchin has a unique ability that allows him to observe different types of powers from other conduits. Great for a superpower video game. And each new power completely changes the way you play the game. At the beginning of the game, you gain smoke powers, the one that you see on the cover pictures of the game. You can blast enemies with attacks, dash through vents, and launch yourself across rooftops. But then the game introduces you to one of the visually satisfying abilities in the entire game: neon power. Suddenly, you're sprinting up buildings at incredible speeds, firing beams of light and turning the city into a glowing blur of motion. Later on, this is already cool, right? But still, later on, you unlock video game powers. That's a little weird to say it out loud, but still, we have video games powers inside a video game. That's actually cool. But yeah, so you have that new power to learn and master it, and eventually, at last, you get concrete. Each power feels different in most cases. Each one adds new ways to fight, travel, and interact with the environment. And because the game keeps introducing these new abilities, the experience constantly feels fresh. The gameplay itself becomes a main attraction. The story doesn't need to carry the entire experience, it just needs to give you a reason to keep going. And I would say that reason is great. Great if you want someone to keep playing a video game. So, yeah, big win for Infamous Seconds. And apart from this, the city itself also plays a huge role in making the game work. Infamous Second Sons take place in Seattle, and the developers clearly designed the city with superpowers in mind. Anyone who played the game would know why. Tall buildings, open rooftops, neon signs lighting up entire cities, which you can extract powers from. Billboards, radio towers, vents, every part of the environment feels like it exists to support movement. And that's important, very important, because traversal is one of the best parts of the game. Running across rooftops with neon powers feels incredibly fast and fluid. Launching yourself through smoke vents lets you move across huge sections of the city in seconds. And before long, simply moving through the world becomes just as fun as fighting enemies. That's something a lot of games struggle to achieve, but Infamous managed to turn the city itself into a part of gameplay, and that's something that I love about Infamous. Another thing that adds depth to the game is the morality system. Throughout the story, you constantly make choices that shape what kind of person Delson becomes. You can choose the heroic path, saving citizens, subduing enemies without unnecessary distractions, or you can choose the dark path, unleashing chaos, using the powers without any restraint, and the game actually responds to these choices. Your abilities evolve differently depending on whether you play as a hero or a villain. Dialogue changes, the tone of the story shifts, even the ending changed based on your decisions. So, even though the core story is simple, your version of it can be completely different from someone else. I would say this is where the infamous Second Son really shines. It understands something that many modern games sometimes forget. Not every game needs to tell a massive complex story. Sometimes the best experiences come from games that simply focuses on gameplay. Da, give players fun mechanics, give them freedom, and let them enjoy the world you've built. Infamous never tried to slow you down with endless exposition or overly long cutscenes. Instead, it trusts the player, it gives you incredible powers and lets you experiment with them. And because of that, the pacing stays exciting from beginning to end. Looking back today, more than a decade since the game originally launched, the design philosophy feels a little rare. Many modern games aim to deliver cinematic storytelling that rivals modern movies and televisions, but games like Infamous, if it works, it can be incredible. Because there is something very refreshing about a game that simply prioritizes fun. A game that understands the fantasy it's trying to deliver and executes it perfectly. Infamous Seconds knew exactly what it wanted to be, a superpower sandbox. A game where running across rooftops and blasting enemies with neon energy feels amazing. A game where the story supports the experience instead of overwhelming it. And maybe that's why the game still feels special today for many of us like me. Because sometimes simplicity isn't weakness. Sometimes it's exactly what a game needs. A simple story, a great world, and powers that make you feel unstoppable. And in that sense, Infamous Second Son got it exactly right. Hey, before you proceed to the next video, I want to say that the story is simple. The story of Infamous is very simple, but that is not to say that Sucker Punch Studios is not capable of developing complex and powerful stories. In fact, they have delivered a great character-driven narrative on Ghost of Tsushima, where our main character has literally have to go through his core morals and fight through his morals that the family taught him to survive in the real world, and that's something that I loved about Ghost of Tsushima. Maybe that's what I'm going to talk about next. So stay tuned.